Welcome to Homeschool Life. I'm Paula, and one of the things that I love about homeschool is the community. And so we're here to provide a place for you so that you can have a conversation, so that you can learn, grow, share, and encourage each other. And we're going to talk about everything from curriculum and how-tos to tips and tricks to day-to-day lifestyle and more. So today we're going to talk about a little bit more about learning styles. And today we're going to focus on kinesthetic learners. You can look at other posts to see the other learning styles and just learn more. So what are learning styles? If you're brand new to this, like I was when I started homeschooling, learning styles are how we process information the best. It's how we do it naturally. And so why is this important that you even know the learning styles of your children and yourself as well? And it helps to know the learning style of your spouse as well. So it's so that you can teach accordingly and that your day will run so much smoother. Trust me on this. So we are all a mix of all the different learning styles, but we have one that is predominant. And so there is no right or wrong way to teach according to the learning styles, but there is ways to teach according to your particular children and their personalities and your lifestyle as well. And there is no right or wrong actual learning style. They're just all different. And so it's really a good thing that you can learn these learning styles about yourself and your children, because then you can start bringing out the natural best in them and focus on those, where we tend to focus on sometimes the negative so that we can hurry on and get to the next thing. But if you focus on their positive strengths, then that will help your day to go smoother as well. So as you learn efficient and effective techniques for teaching your kids at home, there will be a lot less frustration. And it also improves the quality of learning, and that naturally improves the speed of learning as well. If you've ever had a day that just drags on and on and on and on, perhaps it could be because you are struggling against some learning styles. Because often the struggles in homeschool are because of the learning and teaching styles conflicting with you and your children, between you and your children. You may have one child that things go really smoothly with, but you may butt heads with a different one. And it could be because of not understanding their learning style. So, for example, one of the ways that I first experienced this before I even understood that there was such a thing as learning styles, my oldest is very visual. I'm very visual. And so teaching her came very naturally. It was easy. It was smooth. We sat down. I sat her down with workbooks. She held still. We went through our day. Piece of cake. So I thought, yes, this homeschooling thing is great. So along comes child number 2, who turns out to be kinesthetic, but I didn't know that yet. And so one day when my second born was about 3, I was teaching my older daughter how to, I was teaching her science, and I was teaching her about how some things sink and some things float, and we were doing this at the kitchen sink. And so I had got out like some building blocks, some Legos for my younger daughter, and she was in the living room just around the corner, and just to have her occupied and so that I could focus on teaching this. So as I'm teaching what is less dense and more dense, my other daughter is off in the next room, and she's just happily playing, and she's not talking, she's not asking questions, nothing. So fast forward several weeks, it might have even been over a month, and we had kind of been going through a drought, and all of a sudden we had a nice rainstorm. Big puddles were out in the apartment parking lot where we were at, and it was during the day and nobody else was around. And so my husband took the kids out to play in the water, and he came in at the end and he said, "Since when did you start teaching our youngest?" And I said, "I haven't been." And he said, well, she's out there showing me what's less dense and what's more dense, and she's showing me how rocks sink and feathers float. And I said, oh my goodness, and it took me a while to figure out when and how she picked that up. I had no idea she was even paying attention. So this is one way that there is definite learning style differences. So let's talk about the 4 main learning styles. So there is visual, spatial learning. And this is your children who come to you and they're often saying, look at this or show me that. They just really need to see it to get it. Then you've got your auditory or your audio, sometimes called oral. These are your ones who really learn through their ears. They are listening, they are hearing, and they'll even talk aloud and read aloud and repeat you aloud so that they hear themselves, because that's how they intake and process most effectively. Then you have your kinesthetic, also called tactile learners, and these are the ones that are just moving and grooving all the time. They have to touch everything and they cannot sit still. Do you have any of those? Then we have right brain, left brain. So these are your very analytical, like a scientist, versus abstract, like a very creative, artistic type of person. And then within all of these, you have the natural tendencies towards solitary learning. So this is your child who wants to be very independent, off by themselves, doesn't want a lot of interaction with everybody else. And then you have your social, who really thrives off of being around others and learning in groups. So with all these different learning styles, don't get overwhelmed, okay? Does this mean that you cannot use the same curriculum for all of your children? No, not at all. So you're going to do some things a little differently. You're just going to tweak some things. So you'll have some together subjects like maybe history and science and math. But then you're going to have and Bible. But then you're going to have and tailor your individual courses like maybe math and reading. So here's how it might look for a group activity. Okay, you're going to be, let's say, history. And so you're going to sit and you're going to read the text, and you're going to have your visual child next to you, and they're going to be reading along with you so that they can see those words. And then let your kinesthetic child just sit off to the side and just play quietly with something like I said, like with Legos or a fidget toy, or be coloring while they're listening. And then while you're reading aloud this text, that is going to be for your auditory learner. And maybe during that part, your visual is going to be copying some diagrams. So over time, you will get them familiar with all the different learning styles, because they'll see it the more children you have, because your children will all have different learning styles. And so that's good though, because this brings a lot of understanding and compassion and kindness into relationships, because there's better understanding, as well as processing when they get to college or their jobs or their family as adults. So what your goal is overall is education that sticks. And so rather than trying to put a square peg in a round hole, you're just going to tailor your teaching and their learning a little bit so that they can learn in a better and easier way. So let's talk about, I've got quite a list of things about your kinesthetic learner. Listen along and see if any of these you can relate to, and relate it to a certain member of your family or maybe yourself that you didn't realize. And then I've got some products to show you that will help you with your kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners are a lot of fun. They're some of my favorite because it doesn't really take much to tweak the curriculum and let them learn on their own. It just takes a little bit of creativity, but it's really not hard at all. So your kinesthetic tactile learners, they need to move to process information. These are your high energy wiggle worms, okay? They retain information best by doing things. So learning happens with a lot of doing and a lot of touch during lessons. They do well like walking in place while they're spelling words to you. Maybe jumping jacks to doing their math facts. Okay, they're not one to just sit at the kitchen table and do their math. They've got to move, and that's okay. You want them to move because then they're going to learn. They are very much, as you can tell, hands-on learners. They like manipulatives. So they like, again, being able to touch and move things around. So for example, you might use like real money for math, counting blocks, things like that. So another thing that they really like is finger plays and puppet theater. They like movement, so tracing with 2 fingers or a whole hand, like in the air. It could be their letters, their spelling, their math. They like tracing it in the air, on carpet, in sand, on a textured wall, just so they're getting that feeling in their fingers as well as they're thinking about it. They like travel and field trips. They excel very well at that because, again, that involves all the senses, right? They're seeing it, they're hearing it, they're smelling it. If you're on a field trip and you have some food while you're out that's related to the field trip, they're even tasting it. So they do really, really well with short projects and short experiences. They do not do so well with long-term goals. Or real complicated, messy things that take a long time to get to the finish line. They excel with, they do really well with DIY, like do-it-yourself timelines and maps where they have to put it together instead of it just already being there in a book for them to just look at. They learn best by exploring and discovering on their own. So as small children, or even in science with your older kids, just putting out a box of things and letting them experiment with it, they will do really well with that. They do really well with lots of repetition and lots of practice. And sometimes you may have to come at things from different angles. I had to do that a lot with my daughter. And it just became this puzzle for me. And so I would try teaching her one way and she wasn't getting it. So I would try another way, and then I would try another way until that light bulb went on. And then it was exciting for both of us. They like to touch everything that they see as they're walking through your house, as they're walking past things. They just cannot keep those hands to themselves. They will wiggle their fingers or their feet while listening. They might, bob a leg up and down, or they just can't sit still. Kinesthetic kids, they relate to others and information better through movement than in words. So if they can hug you versus saying I love you, that type of thing. So as you can imagine, frequent breaks are really important because it's just really difficult for these guys to sit still. So you want to watch for one subject where they're quiet and plan accordingly. And just really watch for it because it will be something that you least expect. But there will be one, sometimes 2 subjects that for whatever reason, there's no rhyme or reason to it, they will just tend to sit still and do this subject. So plan to do that subject when you're scheduling with that child at the same time that you need it to be quiet so that you can focus on a different child on teaching them something one-on-one. So these kids get distracted easy when they're told to sit still and to be quiet, and so sometimes they can get themselves in a little bit of trouble because listening without moving is just really, really hard for them. They are the ones that will show anger physically. So they're going to stomp their foot, they're going to slam a door, they're going to bang a table when they're angry. They like to make paper airplanes and fans out of paper. It could be a homework assignment, it could be a straight piece of paper, but it's just something they like to do because, again, they're working with their hands and they can see something very quickly that they have created. They use hand motions a lot, facial expressions and gestures a lot. Again, movement with these guys. They have excellent muscle coordination in sports. They have skills in balancing, and they can even balance on one foot blindfolded. They excel at taking things apart and then putting it back together, trying to figure out how it works. They like physical rewards, so they like hugs and pats on the back and high fives rather than stars or, I'm thinking stars, stickers, that's what I'm trying to say. So rather than stickers or just drawing a star on their paper, just give them a high five or a hug. They flourish when they're able to show others what they have learned, or how to do something, because for them, that just is really exciting because they're showing somebody what that they have learned, because usually there's a lot of hand motions and a lot of details into that. They love short, dynamic presentations. So these are your kids that'll like to do role playing and put on little plays and musicals and presentations for you all the time. They like playing charades a lot, and so this is a great learning tool to use as well. They will use their finger to point at and follow words when they're learning how to read. They like construction, so they like building blocks and things. They enjoy music and learning, and if you can combine those two things together, let them dance while they're learning, while they're doing some subject. Let them be the conductor, let them play an air guitar or drums, just whatever. They're actually learning. They're not just goofing off. So when you look across the room and you see them doing that, they're learning. They're letting it kind of seep and soak in. So the key is a variety of methods, lots of hands-on activities. Oh, and I wanted to give you another example of my youngest daughter again. When I was first teaching her, I was trying to get her to memorize scripture. And I started with a long, sentence, and I went down and down and down and down, and she just wasn't getting it. And again, this is before I knew anything about learning styles, which, by the way, I learned at a homeschool convention that year. And so I'm trying to make her just sit next to me with a Bible in our laps and just memorize. And this went on for several weeks. I happened to have a dentist appointment, and so my husband was staying with our kids, and I came home from that appointment, and he says, "Mommy, look what we've done." And she recites all of John 3:16. And I said, "Oh my goodness, do it again." And she did it again. And I said, "How did you do that?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "I was just holding her." She was about, 4, maybe 5. And he was holding her, and he just made it into a little song and danced with her. And so that movement and the music, she was able to memorize it just like that. So let's talk about some struggles with your kinesthetic kids. And we're almost done with this part, and then I'm going to show you some cool things. So struggles include concentration. So when they're sitting still and really trying to concentrate on things like phonics, grammar, and math rules. Reading for information. So reading comprehension can be difficult for them. Analytical work, as you can imagine. Proofreading and editing. Research, writing, that is difficult for them as well. Long-term projects, like I mentioned before, like science and history projects, those can tend to be more difficult for them as well. And just understanding the importance of what work that they are doing right now in school, how that relates to other academic goals or life skills. They're just very much in the moment. So let me show you some of these products that can really help you along the way. So that you don't have to do like this cup, and this cup says, "Don't make me use my teacher voice." You may have felt like doing that with your kinesthetic kid before, but after you use some of these ideas that I give you, you won't have to do that anymore. All right, so let's just talk about some simple things, like using chalk and a regular little chalkboard. Because of the feel, that texture while they're working, and they're able to be repetitive so they can erase it and do it again, whether they're drawing or doing math or spelling or words, or a dry erase board with a dry erase marker. Again, that repetitiveness, and again, that texture. And you may have a child who prefers one over the other. All right, how about a ball? They can bounce the ball or toss it in the air while they're doing their math facts, or jump rope, or this little guy, skip along. If those two things are starting to get kind of old after a few years, grab one of these. Very inexpensive and very fun for them. Let's talk about science. Science is going to be really good if they can do short readings and lots of color in the text. So for instance, this weather book, I'm just going to flip through a little bit. Lots of pictures to help them to get really engaged, and short little readings. And then they've got, this is a master books, and you use these 4 books together for this course. This is for 7th through 12th graders. And then after they read a short section in there, then they've got different activities that they do here. So that really helps them to retain what they have just read in that book. Right, I'm going to move over here for spelling and language arts type of things. So, spelling power is a really good one. This is one that this lady wrote. She was a public school teacher, and then she was homeschooling her kids. She spent 5 years researching just how to teach spelling in all kinds of different ways. I used this for all of my children and all of their different learning styles because she gives you lots and lots of examples. Oh, let me flip through the back way of how you can do spelling with your kids. And so for my visual, I did it one way, and for my kinesthetic, I did it another way, and so forth. And then this is the little book that you use with it. It's a 10-step study sheet, and they do the exact same 10 steps every single time that they do their spelling. And so that helps your repetitive learners as well. And another one that you might think about is a reason for spelling. So it has scripture, values, and fun activities. It's got lots of color, and it's just got a nice variety, as you can see, of different kinds of activities. So those are 2 spelling curriculums. Explode the Code is great for phonics. This says pilot, tiger, not a tiger. So they use humor. They use different activities here. This says, can you play the trumpet with lipstick on? So again, it's got different kinds of activities and humor in it. Very popular program. And then good old Hooked on Phonics for reading. This has got a lot of, it's got music, and it's got singing, and it's got stickers, and it's got all kinds of different activities for your kids. And then another thing that's great, remember I talked about the sand. Here we go. Sandpaper letters. So these are sheets that have the letters, and they're glued on here with sand, so it gives them that texture feel. Or you can use and create your own sand tray. So you can just use a small little one like this, or you could get a bigger size one, get you some inexpensive colored sand and just pour in here, and then they just trace with their fingers, and they can do letters on this one, or they could do small words, and then you could do a bigger one for bigger words, like something like this. And this even comes with a lid. You can fill this up with sand, and then when you're not using it, put the lid on, stack it on a shelf somewhere. And another thing is sandpaper numbers. All right. And then here's a puzzle. These are compound words. And so they put it together by pictures and as well as the words sun and flower. And so they're, again, learning by physically doing some things. Here is flashcards. They do really, really good with flashcards. And so here's a consonants, blends, and digraphs with the picture of the zebra. And then it's got it underlined and colored in blue. The zebra has stripes. So they do better with something like this than just a plain one that just shows a Z. All right, so moving over to math. So again, you can use the sand trays for math. Your kids like manipulatives when they're kinesthetic. So this is Bob Jones manipulatives for grade 3. These are like heavy cardstock, punch out. So these are inexpensive, and they don't take up very much space, so they're easy to store. And so this is one version. And then here is a trifecta math facts equals fun. And so again, it's a math game. So if you can find puzzles and games that continue to educate your kids, sometimes they don't even realize that they're learning while they're doing these things. Teaching Money, Financial Peace by Dave Ramsey, and it has all sorts of things in here. I'll show you the back here. It has all sorts of things in here that really helps your kids to understand because they're doing things. And then manipulatives, and here's a whole box of manipulatives. Let me show you inside here. This is Saxon's box of manipulatives to use with multiple grades. And so, can you see in there? There's just all kinds of colorful and fun things in here that will just really help them hands-on versus just seeing it plain in a workbook. Shooting hoops. that's an activity that your kids can do while they're working on their multiplication tables, while they're working on their ABCs, their spelling, memorizing, reciting, multiple things. And so this is something, again, inexpensive. You can put it in your house. You can have it outdoors. I would often have my daughter, who had to take frequent breaks, I would have her march around the kitchen table between doing some of her math. I would set a timer for about every 10 or 15 minutes, and if it was a nice day, let her go outside some of those times and just run around the backyard or go swing for a little bit. I would have her, if we lived in a place with stairs, go up and down the stairs, or just go get a drink of water and come back, or just simple things, but it's just getting them to move and come back, and then they're like refreshed. It's like setting a reset button, and now they're ready to learn again. So here's some building blocks. These are really nice because they don't make a lot of noise, and they can use their imagination with it, and they're using their fingers, and they're just building different things, but at the same time they're listening to you while you're talking about science or math or history or whatever it might be. But they're learning because they're doing something at the same time. They might not be doing something that's related to what they're learning, but they're doing something. So other things to do, stress balls. Those are a good thing to have. They're quiet, and so they're not very distracting at all, and they're small and inexpensive. This is a Cincy band, and so this has little nubs here on both sides. So they feel it on both sides, on their wrist, and then they can just kind of play with it like this while they're listening and learning. And then these little fun guys, these are pencil pushers. So one of these flips up and down, and they flip around back and forth. And so this is something that they could have this like while they're doing their math and they're like writing out their problems. And if they're stuck and they're thinking about something, they can just play with that for a minute, and then they can go right back to writing because they've remembered whatever it is or figured it out. So, let me see. Okay, I think that is all of the products that I have to show you. There's a whole lot more, but this just kind of gives you an idea, and it doesn't have to be expensive, and a lot of the stuff that you can do just on your own and at home, and some things you might want to buy and do something different. So, how do you know your kiddos' different learning styles? So, there's several different things. There's a free learning style assessment online. You can Google that, and you can have your kids take that. If they're really young, you just take it for them, and you just answer the questions because you know them and you know what their actions and attitudes are. You can listen to homeschool convention workshops. They have lots of these all the time, year-round, or go to a workshop at a homeschool convention in your local area and learn more about learning styles like I did. Check out hslda.org for articles. They've got some great articles on learning styles. That's Homeschool Legal Defense Association. Diane Kraft, dianecraft.org, and we'll have links to all of this in this video for you. She has some great information on her website. She's been working with children and different learning disabilities and learning styles for years and years and years and years. Dr. Kathy Cook at celebratekids.com has some great information as well. And then you can check out other books and podcasts as well. This book is called The Way They Learn, and this is by Cynthia Ulrich Tobias. This goes a little bit deeper, actually quite a bit deeper, and she even says in here that it can take several years to really do everything and understand everything that she teaches in this book. So this is a great little reference book, and if you really get into the learning styles like I did and just want to learn more, this is a great resource as well. So, did any light bulbs go on for you regarding your child and your children's different learning styles? How about for yourself or for your spouse? It's very interesting, and once you can tune in to the different learning styles and you can allow for those differences and you can teach accordingly, homeschool becomes so much more fun and easier to do, a lot less frustration, and it's a lot less time consuming as well. And so then you're building up those strengths in each of your kids and you and yourself and your spouse as well. So I hope that this was helpful for you and that you've learned some things and that you continue on and learn more. Please check Mardel.com for any of these products and check our stores if you happen to have one in your area. We also have a blog that talks about learning styles as well as other homeschool related articles and just lifestyle articles in general. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and really enjoy your homeschool life. It's a great blessing and it's a great honor and privilege to be able to do what you're doing. Bye for now.